The monitor said everything was fine. The dog disagreed. Celine Voss had worked 6 years as a NICU nurse before her daughter Adeline was born, which meant nursery safety was not an abstract concept to her. It was a checklist she'd run 1,000 times for other people's babies before she ever ran it for her own. Video monitor, audio monitor, breathing pad under the mattress, room thermostat locked at 68 degrees. Everything by every reading available to her, said Adeline was sleeping soundly. Bear, their 4-year-old golden retriever, had a different opinion, and he expressed it the same way every single night for a week. Lying pressed against the crib's blind spot, the one small patch of floor the monitor camera didn't cover, refusing every attempt to move him to his own bed down the hall. At first, Celine found it sweet. Then, by night, 4. Mildly concerning, a dog fixated on one exact location felt less like affection and more like a habit she should probably correct before it became a nightly standoff. She tried treats. She tried closing the nursery door and letting him sleep in the hallway. He scratched at the door with a persistence she hadn't seen from him before, low and steady, until she gave up and let him back in. He's just decided this is his spot, she told her husband Anders on night 5, mostly to convince herself. Dogs get attached to routines. It was a clean, professional-sounding explanation. It was also incomplete. On the 7th night, Celine woke at 2 a.m. to a sound she hadn't heard from Bear before. Not a bark, a low, continuous whine directly outside the nursery door, urgent in a way that pulled her out of bed before she'd even fully processed why. She found him standing at the crib rail, both paws up, nose lowered toward Adeline's face, refusing to back down even when she reached past him. Adeline's breathing was shallow. Not absent, the monitor hadn't triggered a single alarm, but noticeably lighter than it should have been. Her color faintly duskier than the soft nursery nightlight should have allowed Celine to notice at a glance. It took her trained eye a full 3 seconds longer than it should have to register something was wrong, because every device in that room was telling her otherwise. The pediatrician the next morning identified a mild but real case of nasal congestion, restricting Adeline's airway more than a healthy infant's typically would. Compounded by a slightly warmer room than the thermostat display had actually been reading due to a faulty sensor. Monitors measure what we tell them to measure, the pediatrician said. A dog in the room is measuring everything, all the time, and reporting the second something changes, long before it crosses whatever threshold triggers an alarm. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're exactly where you should be. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Celine thought about that blind spot for days afterward. Bear choosing the one patch of floor, no camera covered. Not stubbornness, a vantage point he trusted more than the monitor bolted to the wall. The scratching at the door on night 4. Not routine, insistence on staying close to something he already knew needed watching. 6 years of NICU training had taught her to read machines. Bear had been reading her daughter directly the entire time. Has your dog ever refused to leave your child's side at night for reasons you couldn't explain? Until they suddenly made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. The thermostat sensor was replaced within the week. Bear still sleeps in that same blind spot every night, and Celine has stopped trying to move him. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. The next story on this channel is about a cockatoo who said one word at 2 a.m. that a mother will never forget.